All right, everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 185, Death and the Afterlife, a very, very interesting work by an interesting individual, Andrew Jackson Davis, actually, who's fairly notorious within the occult, I suppose. Link in the description to my edition of this work is on Amazon. Second and third links there are to my books, blogs. I do have other sort of spooky woo out there work, and this is a little bit of that. This is an early spiritualist work. We're talking the 1870s. Here you have one of the progenitors of that. Now, in full disclosure, and this is the only time I've done this, I actually had to redact an entire passage because of its, let's say, ethnic asides, because I don't want to get deplatformed off of Amazon and everywhere else. Because we've gotten into this mob mentality era, so for right now, certain knowledge is taboo, but I tell people in the forward, you can find this work fairly easily. You can get it on archive.org, a scan of the original document, and you can read it there. And you should. Like, knowledge should always be there, but I mean, if my livelihood's on the line, that sort of changes it a little bit, I suppose, which is the mentality of many people now, out of necessity. I'd like to continue speaking unperturbed. But anyway, it's a good work overall, but it's strange, because what he's saying is, well, I'm a clairvoyant, the author. I'm clairvoyant, and I can literally, like, in times of fasting and sort of prayerful reservation, I fast and spend several days sort of weaning myself out of life and being alone and just at peace. And I can get these visions when I'm fully awake. I can get visions of the spiritual world. And according to him, the afterlife is basically a limitless, inexhaustible number of worlds. Theosophy takes off from this somewhat. Multiple worlds, different groups of people, they're doing much what they do now, only in a more perfected form, in a more immortal form. There's even like a sort of purgatory, which is a world very much like our own, and you can't sort of leave this world. People who have done terrible things, they have to sort of atone. They have to remember and feel badly and sort of wait their turn to get into these other worlds. It's the tutorial world, I suppose, of the afterlife. And it's still a nice place. There's like rivers of light and weird plants and stuff. And some of his stories, his interactions with the spiritual world, are quite bizarre. Like that he's got he interacts with this one plant, very beautiful flower, and he touches it and it immediately dies. And he's like, "Well, what the fuck happened?" He's talking to his spirit guide. He's like, "Oh, well, you're not perfected yet, so you sort of got to wait. You got to cleanse yourself of even more impure thoughts. Then you can play with the flowers and stuff." And it's talking about how like kids are there and stuff, and people have spiritual children that they didn't even know they had and stuff like that. There are also other accounts that he lists and goes through. This actually, between that and the redacted, very ethnocentric passage on the origin, the sort of evolution of the races sort of stuff that you get in the mid-1800s, this forms the early backbone of what became the eugenics movement. It's proto-eugenic. It goes up through the anthropological period, you're talking the end of the 19th century, and turns into the eugenics movement, actually, and informs all modern society. Yes, indeed, a bunch of occultists, including kooks who were not actually occultists at all, like think of someone, maybe Blavatsky or someone who was, her seances especially were exposed as fraudulent. A bunch of stage magicians, seance-holding mediums, clairvoyants, and then some actual occultists informed modernity. The world around you with all of its trappings, all the technology, was informed first by the spiritual. We live in the spiritual world. It's actually funny. People think that the opposite happened. The physical world influences the spiritual. And for the last century, it's been the latter, actually. The world and all of its vices and virtues really comes from that era, the mid-1800s sort of early industrial era thought. It starts with a bunch of self-repressed spiritualists. Yes, the spiritualists won in the physical world completely over the fire and brimstone types and the secularists, who now have to claw their way back and are. So it's an interesting book. It's a historically significant piece. Just that one section begrudgingly had to be redacted. It is still the original. You can get it. It's free. Again, I've linked it on the books blogs. If you go there to the entry from my latest work, which is this one, you will see those. So it's quite interesting. Highly recommended. It's full length even with the redaction, which was a fairly short section. I think the 8th in the work. Interesting. Very, very strange at times, though. A little bit on the dense and strange side, a little bit of the bizarre. Again, a link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links to my books, blogs. Again, if you want to see the redacted stuff, the stuff that shall not be put online because it would be considered too edgy. It's funny, 150-year-old ideology, it's too edgy. It's very, very funny. It's sort of like your Victorian porn is now banned. So it's a sign of the times. We're in an outrage mob-addled social panic, and it's actually slightly amusing at this point because of how funny it is. That's about all. Peace out.